Hello and welcome to the MA's review of the week. I'm the morning advertiser, Ed Bedington, and with me this morning I have the fantastic Allen Simpson of UKHospitality. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning. How are you, Ed?
I'm not bad, sir. Not bad. How's things? Did you have a good Christmas?
I did actually. We went up to Yorkshire, which is what we tend to do. We've always my wife and I have been together since we were very young. We started going away at Christmas as a way to not offend either set of parents. We've done it since. So we're on the Yorkshire Dales with our daughter and our dog. So it's all very bucolic. What about you?
Right, lovely. Survived it with the family, I think is the best description. We won't go there. We won't go there. So, I mean, we're here to talk about the week's news. The big story here is a cat meows at my door because I've shut it, and I hate that. The big story this week, has been the streets, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. It feels. Very rarely in life I have found you get to claim an unalloyed win. You know, we've worked incredibly hard with others in the industry on the business rates issue from the moment the Chancellor stood up. You know, we had a call with the Chancellor's office 5 minutes before she spoke, where we were told what was going to be in it, and we realised immediately that it was going to be a very negative outcome for the sector. Been fighting ever since, you know, in the media behind the scenes with government, as I know others have as well. We were dismayed, frankly, by today's leaks. It's always very telling when they don't come and actually talk to you in person. You know, when they don't say, this is what we're going to announce. What do you think? Is this gonna be sufficient? For two reasons, really. The first thing is, look, we're still awaiting the details, but it doesn't look like the pub aspect of this is going to be enough, right? It looks partial, and then of course there's the fact that it's pubs only, and you know there's 6 out of 7 jobs in the hospitality sector outside of the pub trade, and we do need a solution for everyone. So it's very hard to look at yesterday and feel positive about it.
So yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I think we're sort of looking at that as an industry, and the pub operator, they'll be sitting there going, "This is great." They're going to review it, but as many have said, is the devil is going to be in the detail. Doesn't sound like you're overly optimistic. I must admit, I'm not massively over optimistic. I fear it's going to be an upping of the multiplier discount, and there you go. You've had something now. Shut up, sit down, and be quiet.
Well, I think. Yeah, so there's been lots of talk about so in the initial coverage was very vague. It just talked about a U-turn for pubs, and you know, because we hadn't had any information, which is very odd. You'd think that they want us to be out being positive and backing it. You know, we were getting our info from phoning up journalists and saying, "What have you been told?"
Yeah.
And you know,
but I was ringing him asking you what you've been told.
Well. So the best piece of journalism on it yesterday was Politico, who had some information which sort of suggested that basically it's going to be fiddling around with some of the valuations and reapplying some of the COVID relief, which is not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough, and there are lots of businesses who, you know, to the passing eye, they look like a pub. They're used as a pub, but actually they're listed as a hotel. You know, I think about I've got a picture of it on my wall. There's an amazing hotel on Morecambe Bay, which is used locally as the local place to go and have a drink in the sun in the summer. It's a pub really, but it's listed as a hotel, and that's not getting the support, you know. And I think it would be very unwise of anybody to accept this as what we get. We've got to carry on pushing, because even people included in it, there's your cat, even people included in it, I think are going to be disappointed by what they get.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because I think the government are going to sit there and go, what more do you want? We've given you stuff. But the reality is it ever going to be enough, do you think?
Yeah, and of course their basic problem is that over the last 2 budgets, they've taken £7 billion from the sector. 7 billion. There's a lot of money, and you know, just axiomatically, their ability to fix what's been done to the sector is expensive to them. So to do something which actually meets the need for us is incredibly expensive for them. So, you know, they've backed themselves into a corner over two budgets by so asymmetrically coming after hospitality. So, you know, I think it's going to take clearly a period to unwind this, but a starting position would be to do something sensible on business rates. It's interesting that the narrative unraveled almost immediately. So when they U-turned on inheritance tax, which obviously sort of helps farmers, but there's lots of pub owners, there's lots of hotel owners, there's lots of others who are staring down the barrel of a very difficult inheritance tax bill. They did something which was more or less acceptable to the farmers, more or less. It wasn't what they wanted exactly, but it was more or less acceptable. But this business rates change has crumbled on impact straight away. You know, the journalists who had a little bit more info than we did, you know, were saying to us, "What do you think about this?" And we were saying, "Well, you know, it doesn't sound like enough, and it doesn't cover enough people." And so, "Oh, all right." And then the other aspect of it, this is gossip, but it's fun. Gossip's fun, is that the Treasury were telling journalists, and I've seen the messages, that the reason they got themselves into this pickle is that although they knew what the average rises were, they didn't know what the pub by pub numbers were. So they sort of knew there was going to be 76%, and that's bad, obviously. But equally, they didn't know that there were going to be some pubs who are at 150%, and they didn't know the distribution. Now, that's nonsense. They had that data for months. And, you know, my team, David in my team, worked all of that out inside about an hour of having the data. So it feels impossible to me that they did well. If I don't know whether they knew, but they should have. They had the data to know for sure. So they got themselves into this problem, I think, by you know, there's always a cock up or conspiracy question, but either way, they got themselves into a problem that they had the data to avoid.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that is the frustration, isn't it? It seems to be the lack of actually thinking things through, common sense almost from day one.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and it was very clear that their strategy after the budget was, you know, Velociraptor comms. For those of us who remember the early 90s Spielberg film Jurassic Park, how do you avoid a Velociraptor? You just keep really still and you wait until they've gone, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they were trying to do. The theory was, look, business rates are boring. They are. It's not a great front page story. Let's try and wait it out. If we can creep to Christmas without a solution, we might get away with this one. But the sector was so successful in putting this on the front pages.
Yeah.
And, you know, my team fought a really good battle, but so did the BII, so did the BBPA, so did the NTIA. And, you know, Andy Lennox down on the South Coast did a phenomenal job as well. We managed to create a situation where MPs went back to their constituencies for Christmas, those of them who live in their constituencies, which is not all of them, and were struck by the level of fury. So they came back to Parliament, and I was talking to, you know, many of them, and were saying to their whips, what on earth have you done? This is a disaster. And as always, it's the cover up that gets you. And, you know, they were saying what you told us is not true. It is not true that, you know, you told us the year one data. You told us that in year one it was all capped at 5%, but I'm talking to pubs who've got 100% increase. So they came back and said to the whips, this isn't good enough, and the government came. So, you know, to my mind, one of the things it is evidence that actually there is always a point in fighting.
Yes, absolutely. Like you say, we need to continue to push that fight. Let's try and end on a little bit of a high. Christmas trade. Are you getting any sort of feedback in terms of how that's been for operators?
It's It's been a mixed picture, I think it's fair to say. So there were days over Christmas where actually it was up year on year, at least in terms of money. There are days over Christmas where it's down year on year in terms of money through the till, but on no day was it enough to account for inflation. So in real terms, we were not up, and that's what we have data to show us. Anecdotally, many of your readers would say that January has been harder than expected. And I think there's a sense that actually just people's willingness to spend has hit a wall. One thing which is very interesting, though, is that in the midst of the traditional January gloom, low and no is actually bringing people out a bit more, sort of, because people have I was talking to somebody who runs a chain of pubs in Southwest, who was saying that they've got people who have got used to Guinness Zero in particular, and are therefore kind of willing to go out to the pub because they think there's something to drink other than fizzy pop. So that's helping a bit. But of course, one of the things that means is that restaurants who sometimes see a bit of a transfer into them from people saying, I'm not going to go to the pub, but I will go out for dinner, are finding that the spend is back with the pub. So, mixed picture, depending what sort of business you run.
I'm going to take that as a high. Let's try and end on that one. Alan, thank you very much for those thoughts. There we go. So yes, we need to keep fighting, I think, is the general message. That's it for this week. We'll be back with more thoughts on the week's news next week. I'm off to kick a cat.